Eddie Hearn, great to have you back on the Sports Agents. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're excited to talk about your new documentary on Netflix because it's a real kind of look at you, your relationship with your family, with Matchroom, and you're kind of, as you always are, you're so honest and open. In fact, so much
Yeah,
so I was thinking, is there anything else we can learn about you?
yeah, maybe not, maybe too honest at times. I mean, that's got me in trouble over the years, but and that's I think one of the beauties about the documentary, if you like. I mean, I watched Drive to Survive about 4 years ago when it launched, and I just thought it was brilliant. I thought it changed just people's understanding of the dynamics of the sport. I think the behind the scenes is so fascinating. And I wrote to Box, and I said, who made it, and I said, if you thought Formula One's interesting, you should try boxing. I mean, it's on another level of drama behind the scenes. And they came in and they filmed a pilot, but when they came in, they were kind of immersed into the darts and the snooker and me and my dad and the business. And, because we've kind of grown to a size that is quite unnatural for its beginnings and it's maybe its infrastructure as well. And we're quite a unique business and they loved it. And, for nearly 2 years, we had these guys following us around, mic'd up. I mean, it was just, there'll be times where you'd be in a blazing argument. You could be in the middle of a ring after a fight, and then, you're screaming in someone's ear, and then you look down at your microphone and you just go, oh, God. And you look, and these guys are over in the corner, with the mic going, yeah, yeah. And it's like, and I go over to them and I say, you can forget putting that in. And they're like, no, 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 no. That is exactly what we want in this. So there wasn't anything really stripped out of it. There's a few embarrassing moments for me as well, but I guess that's the beauty of it, and they kind of convinced me that you just got to go with that. So slightly nervous at the same time, but wouldn't be the first time I made a
Well,
bit of a plonker out myself. So.
no, but that's interesting for you, isn't it? Because in some ways, the shoe is on the other foot here. You will often see your fighters, or whether it be the darts or the snooker within the company, and how you can market people and where the interest is and what might catch someone's attention. But now these documentary makers are doing the same to you.
Yeah, basically, we're getting what we deserve probably, but it's just like there's a lot of raw stuff. Obviously, as we built up, they wanted to kind of finish the show with a crescendo of Matchroom success. But the problem was we kept losing. We went on this terrible run where, Frank Warren beat us 5-0. That's in there. AJ got knocked out at Wembley. Anthony Joshua was actually, that fight was supposed to be the final episode. It was like, AJ's going to win. He's going to win the world championship. You drive off down the road and it's like, we've done it. We're back on top. But it never came. So it was like, we kept going. Obviously, Katie Taylor had a huge win against Serrano on the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson card. And there's loads of back and forths and arguments between me and Jake Paul. Like, again, just a lot of drama, but also the infrastructure of the darts and key players as well from our business and those worlds. So Luke Littler, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Anthony Joshua, Turkey El Sheikh, like everybody, they're all in it, and it's a lot of fun.
On
It was a decision. It was a
on
difficult decision to go with, if I'm honest.
on Anthony Joshua, so much of Matchroom's success in boxing was tied with his career. I know we're going to talk about all the other things that Matchroom does, and we saw him the other day actually at the
Oh,
BGC.
BGC,
Yeah,
mate.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You didn't allow us to talk to him, but we saw him, and
No, I got the blow. I wasn't even there.
well, you're the head honcho. It all comes from you. But I was allowed to ask him about the charity he was with, but I wasn't allowed to ask him anything else. And what I wanted to say to him was that we miss him. When I
Yeah,
saw him, and he looks in fantastic shape. He looks like he's
always. Yeah,
training. I mean, I wanted to say what you're training for, but he
yeah,
looks like he could fight tomorrow.
yeah.
Um, are we kind of in between eras at Matchroom because he's not fighting, and maybe we don't know if he's going to fight
Yeah, I
again?
think I think in British boxing in general, there is definitely the kind of old guard just still there, but and some of those old guard, you're talking about people like David Hay, Amir Khan, Carl Froch, Tony Bellew. I mean, we had an amazing era there and I could name another 15, and those era, most of them have gone, or some of them are still there, but it's the new wave coming round. So there's definitely a moment of building the new talent. AJ's still got dare I say 12, 18 months, whatever it will be left, I'm sure we'll see Tyson Fury again. But these guys, even the fight at the weekend, Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford, they're 38 and 36 or something. I mean, there's definitely the need for that young talent to come through. But the first question I always get is, when's Anthony Joshua fighting? Is he going to fight Tyson Fury? So those fighters really remain the flagship. And you're right, Gabby. We do still want them, and we do still need them for those big flagship nights.
You sort of said it was a difficult decision to do this. Why are you doing it?
We kind of got talked into it a little bit. I mean, I love the boxing idea, but this is different. This is like, once you start getting my dad's 77 years old, right? And let's be honest, there's no filter, so it's like when you're running a big sort of corporate business, every time he goes on the mic, you're kind of just holding your breath, really, and sort of going.
I mean, we all have. My dad listens to this podcast, so I'm a bit wary about saying this, but we all have dads of a similar age, and there is. I think we're probably all in agreement, aren't we? There's a.
Just the world has changed, and you can't. I don't think there's much controversial with what he says, but you've just got to be a little bit smarter these days. In an interview. I mean, that's fact. So every time he gets carried away, So when he started filming for this documentary, he was like, bloody cameras are everywhere. Oh, what the next thing, he's down his fishing lake at home, and he's got like 30 of them filming him all day.
Well, speaking of this fishing lake, the first time I met your dad was one of the first ever OBs I did when I went to Sky as a 23-year-old to do Fisherama.
Fishermania.
Fishermania.
Yeah, how did you get that wrong, Gabby? I mean, that's world renowned.
Fishermania, that was it. And there were, honestly, Mark, there were about 15 presenters around a lake because we all had different fishermen that we had to interview. So there were too many fishermen for us to, and it was this crazy fishing competition. And you could see, I mean, talk about somebody lighting up. I mean, he was in his happy place that day, obviously.
That is a good example of him. I mean, who creates Fishermania? And better, who sells it to Sky? What was it, 8 hours of live fishing, right?
Well, look, Sky had football.
It's still going, Gabby. I don't want to show your age, but it's like Fishermania 20 or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So, and it's like, at every board meeting we'll sit in and we'll go, because Fishermania, two fishermen is the ultimate prize. I mean, it's the Champions League, it's Wimbledon, it's the USA. I mean, it's like, but it doesn't really make a lot of money, if I'm honest, and it does involve a lot of time and preparation. But it's an institution of Matchroom, and we will sit in a board meeting and say, "Look, do you think we should park up Fishermania? I mean, has it kind of had you over my dead body? I am not. That is the greatest event we do. It's like not quite, but But that's kind of the conversations you see in the documentary as well.
That, and that's the documentary is going to show that part of your business. The fact that darts, dare I say it, is the most profitable part.
Yeah, by a long way. I mean, boxing will continue to have the presence and the kind of the headlines and the especially the digital conversation, which boxing's very good at. But darts is a phenomenon. I mean, people don't understand when I say to people that darts dwarfs the boxing viewing figures by 3 times. I mean, there's nothing that even compares to the darts viewing figures outside of the Premier League football. And a lot of major darts events are rating the same as your average Premier League game on Sky, which is phenomenal. I mean, I wish they paid us the same, that they were paying per game for the Premier League, but it's another conversation. But
you've got a new deal though, haven't you?
True. Yeah, that went all right. That was much more respected than the last one. But still, sometimes people perceive it as, oh, it's just darts, but not really. When you go to a venue, every major arena in the country, and you sell out instantly, and you're racking up 5, 6, 7, a million viewing figures per night. It's unbelievable. And people think that Luke Littler changed darts. Darts was already in a phenomenal place, but he just took it to another level of a wider audience. And the first time probably that a darts player. I mean, when you think about it, if you started talking about the top most famous 5 famous British sports people right now, he's right up there, and he's a darts player. And I think the younger generation now look at the Littlers and go, do you know, there's actually a career for me now, and we're seeing that translate to grassroots, to the qualifying schools. Young people are playing darts, and not everyone has the physicalities to go out and play, football at a high level or rugby or whatever it is. And Luke has just been an unbelievable addition, role model, ambassador, whatever you want to call him.
I mean, I was talking to a young lad recently, and his mum, who's going through everything that you're saying there, Eddie. You know, I think he's 12, 13, and the amount of work that he is putting in to try and eventually have this professional darts career. I mean, it was a nightly thing for him, balanced in amongst everything else that he was doing school wise. Did you on this documentary? And I know you can go, oh my God, don't put that in, or why have we done this, or this, that, and the other. Was there anything? Did you find any of it sort of cathartic or therapeutic, or did it make you evaluate your relationship with your dad, or did you find stuff out about your dad that you didn't know?
No, I mean, I think to me, my relationship with my dad's always been very normal. But from the outset and to other people, it's not really normal at all. I mean, he was very hard on me growing up to the point where I was, he calls me Silver Spoon Kid, and I had a great upbringing, but he was petrified of giving me that upbringing and everything. My whole education really was built around sport. And business kind of became a sport where we both weren't good enough to play anything at a professional level. So this is our competition, and winning is just like anything other than winning is completely irrelevant. And it was like the drumming into you as a kid of participation is like I couldn't care less about the participation, and I'm probably a little bit softer. I have two daughters, so like I'm not quite as sort of brutal as he was with it as well. But he is obsessed with money, obsessed with making money, and he comes from a council estate in Dagenham, and when he was growing up, he was obsessed with trying to build a better life and having all the things he could ever want.
So, what's your obsession then? Because you had that life, you had that great
Yeah,
upbringing. You went to
probably
school in
try. Yeah,
Liverpool.
probably
You
just
got,
trying to make a name within my own right. I think there's always the conversation in this world of oh, you had a head start because of your dad. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. Like, I mean, I had a good education. I went to work in the sports industry for 6 or 7 years, but then I came to work for him, which I felt was kind of like my responsibility in life. He'd given his whole life to this company. Who's going to take it forward? Who's going to try and take it to the next level? But just like that competition that we had throughout my whole life, I wanted to be better than him. Didn't matter if we were playing cricket in the garden or table tennis upstairs or whatever we were doing. I wanted to be better than him, and I wanted to be an achiever in my own name. And growing up, I was always Barry's boy, which I dined out on, a lot of the time, especially when you're 15 and 16 and you're almost telling people. But then once you start becoming a man, it becomes a little bit sad just being known as Barry. And I wanted to come out of the shadows and try and achieve something in my own name where people could say, oh, look, that's Eddie Hearn's dad over there, which we joke
Yeah.
about now because that's what happens when he goes out.
does he
People go,
tell
oh,
his
no,
dad to you, Eddie? Does
yeah,
he say,
I think so. I mean, I think the thing that he's most proud of is probably my work ethic, and in the industry, I'm kind of renowned as a bit of a sicko in that respect because I'm not. I can sell. I can sell better than anybody. I can talk better than anybody. I'm not an intellectual genius, but I do work harder than everybody. And there's no one that even my biggest competitors, even the people that dislike me, couldn't say he does not work himself to the bone all the time. And that is how I was built.
Do you
You
feel?
work.
Do you feel like you've proved yourself as your own man then, or are you still driven to
Yeah,
prove
I think
people wrong?
there's probably a perception that I think I'm the bee's knees, and I rate myself. I'm actually my own biggest critic. I think that I could do so much better, and there's so much more to come. Sometimes I look back on the shows and the achievements. I mean, the key thing for us, particularly in boxing, I wanted to be a global promoter. I looked at Dana White, I looked at the WWE, and I look at that brand that was built globally. No one's ever done that before in boxing. And we're the only people that have ever done that with TV deals in the UK, in America, in Mexico, in Australia, in Saudi Arabia. Every week we're in another city around the world. It's never been done before. So I think in that respect, I appreciate what we've achieved, but we are, globally we're number one because we're really the only global force in boxing. But in certain markets, you might be number one year, and then Frank Warren's number one, or you're number one in 1 year, and Bob Arum's number one in America. So, yeah, the work is never done. And I think once you think the work is done, it's probably when you're done.
Gabby knows I'm obsessed with this documentary, as do everybody that listens to this podcast. Have you watched the Jerry Jones documentary then, also on
Not
Netflix?
yet, but I've heard incredible things about it.
Have you? You've never had to deal with him, have you?
Yeah, I have. I've done. I broke the attendance record in America for American boxing history. The biggest attendance record indoors, 75,000 at the AT&T
At the
Stadium
team.
with Jerry. In fact, 6 weeks ago, I was with him, and we did a show at his training centre, which is the Ford Centre there in Frisco, which is unbelievable. He is like. He reminds me in a way. I haven't seen the documentary, so I don't want to say too much like my dad, but a lot like my dad in that he probably. I mean, he knows who I am, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm right down the bottom of any pecking order for Jerry Jones. When I was there at the fight, he came and he sat in the crowd. Not, I said to come and sit next to him. He said, "I'm all right. I've got my friends over here," and he asked to sit, and he came over, and you would have thought that I was best man at his wedding. And that's people like that are very good. I was so impressed. Eddie, I got to speak. And it's almost like someone's had a chat with him a couple of minutes before and said, right, this is Eddie Hearn. He did the Canelo Alvarez Billy Joe Saunders show. He's promoting the show tonight. He does this, and he just
This is how the
reeled it all off.
Royals.
I'm
This is
like,
how the Royals are briefed when they meet.
yeah, probably.
They are,
But
and they have something behind
it
them.
is kind of like it's also an obsession for what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure someone told him, but he's on it. And he fascinated me, so I'm going to watch that
Oh, it's
documentary as well.
amazing, Eddie.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And you say your dad's a bit like that in terms of making
I'm
people
not that.
feel.
I'm not that social, right? Because I speak to people, I do interviews all day, and I actually like just going to just chilling out at home and doing nothing. He's non-stop. I phoned him the other night. He was at Chelmsford Racehall course with Johnny Fisher, one of our heavyweights. At some chat, he goes everywhere. He would go to the opening of an envelope. Honestly, right? He's just his enthusiasm and his engine. He's unbelievable. And when that stops, he'll stop. The people always talk about retiring, and if he retired and just sat down the lake, he'd be done. He might have been done already, honestly. But he was playing cricket. Yesterday, I went over to East Hanningfield, where he lives. He was captaining the president's team in his local cricket club. He plays for Essex over 70s, right? I think I've told you this story before. He scored 72 and 51 not out in his 2 games. This was like 3 weeks after having his 3rd heart attack.
My
And I
God.
don't know if I told you the story before, but my favourite story when he played for Essex over 70s, he was actually in the B team, and he didn't tell me he was in the B team. And I saw a report that said the B team, and I went, "You're in the B team?" He's like, "No, no, no, no." Anyway, then he got put in the A team, right? Then 2 weeks later, he got a letter from the ECB, right, to the office. Came in, thing,
Yeah.
and it came and it said England over 70s Ashes tour of Australia.
No.
And he was absolutely overjoyed. He said, "Dear Barry, thank you to your contribution for the Essex over 70s. We have the big tour coming up at the Ashes in Australia, and we'd really like you to write the foreword for the programme." True story. True story. I was surprised he even told us it, but he said I was like tears in my eyes.
He was literally booking his flight.
He was. He's a great competitor, honestly. I mean, he plays my daughter at table tennis. She's up to 21-19 she lost recently. And he was diving on the floor. Yes! Yes! And he won. And this is all the things I saw, Grana. I mean, it's mad.
It's going to be a great watch.
It is going to be a great watch. Listen, before you go, just your memories of Ricky Hatton and what he did for the sport and what he did for fans of the sport.
Yeah, yesterday was just a few people just were sort of messaging saying, "I've heard, something's happened to Ricky Hatton and blah, blah, blah." And then it comes out, with like an official, story, I think, with the Manchester Evening News. And it was just, I mean, he's the same age as me. But I see him as like this senior legend of the sport. I mean, he was like the last of the dying breed before social media, right? So the real working class hero that was the man of the people, right? Never did anything for views or likes, or, you know, never showed any act of kindness and asked for it to be filmed and you know, put out there by his PR team. He never had a PR team. In fact, you know, he would go out and he would fight, and then next thing he would be in the pub in Manchester. And guess what? That's why 30,000 or 40,000 people travelled to his fights in Las Vegas. I mean, you'll never, ever, ever see anyone as popular as that. And, you know, Ricky was a guy who he could just adapt to any environment, but he loved just being one of the lads. You know, he would get up and he would perform stand-up comedy. I saw it. Such a funny guy and full of life, full of energy, amazing to be around. And, you know, he probably needed to work on himself, but he was always willing and prioritising working on others. You know, and that's a true act of selflessness where, you know, and actually are showing that, you know, on the outside, he had his demons, but you would never know it, you know, because in the moment, to the face, he was full of life and energy, and he would always help others before helping himself, you know, and you know, when you hear news like that, and then everybody, you know, I think of his son Campbell that we promoted, you know, for his whole career. You know, his brother Matthew, who we worked with as well. I mean, you just can't imagine, you know, and it's just so sad because and you've seen the response.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is, you know, someone, I've never found one person who's ever said a bad word about Ricky Hatton. And I work in boxing where people slag each other off non-stop. Not one bad word. Never don't like that Ricky Hatton. Oh, he's a bitch, yeah. Just, we love Ricky. Everybody loved him. And there was one person in the whole industry that didn't love Ricky Hatton. And that says it all.
Eddie, thank you very much for giving us your time today. Good to see you.
Cheers, all.
Matchroom, The Greatest Showman with Barry and Eddie Hearn launches globally on Netflix on Wednesday, the 17th of September.
Squeaky bum time.
The Sports Agents
with Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman.